Hey, part like three of it doesn't need to be pretty for it to be a win. That's again what happens in the series finale here against Kansas City. The Tigers walk away taking 3 of 4 on the road, though. We'll gladly take it. Some big performances in terms of the trade deadline. We'll talk about where the team stands, where certain individual players stand, and then we'll preview really from now until the deadline. But the Padres are up next, all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Friday, July 21st, 2023. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're back. We are back, and we are back. No episode yesterday. Sorry about that. Also, there's supposed to be a tweet that was supposed to go out, scheduled to go out in the morning. And, Twitter is just, you never know what you're going to get on a daily basis at this point. And it never went out. So I tried to tweet, went out later in the day, but not everybody saw it. Was not feeling well whatsoever. I don't like missing shows ever. And I certainly wasn't about to miss 2 in a row. So still not feeling too terribly great at the present moment. But we're here, all good, no worries. So, let's talk about these ball games. The Tigers walk away from Kansas City on the road with a series victory in a 4-game set. Really where I stand on, we'll talk about like where I stand on the trade deadline and stuff later. But as far as this team in its present state, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I don't think they're good enough to sweep anybody. They straight up lost the series to the Oakland Athletics. They won 3 of 4 against Kansas City, but none of the 3 were in unison, were in a row, rather, right? Like you dropped game 2, you won game 4, or you dropped game 3, you won game 4. So like, I don't expect a sweep ever with this baseball team. And that doesn't mean they're awful. That's not me saying that they're like terrible and they're unable to. But we talked about earlier in the week, they haven't gone on a 3-game win streak in like 2 months. It's been since like May. They've even won 3 games straight. So yeah, I guess that's really in a weirdly like backhanded compliment way. Like me saying that I'll gladly take. I'm pleased with walking away of 3 of 4. Was it the prettiest 4 games we've ever seen? No, certainly not, right? There was still a lot of room for improvement and a lot of things that didn't go very well, but enough went well enough, I guess that's English, to take 3 of 4 from another team in our division. Don't really care how bad they are. We're just at a point where I'm going to take every win and be happy about it, not really look at the quality of win as much. Like, this team's not good enough to care about quality of win. Let's just take wins. Again, they lost 2 of 3 to Oakland, got shut out once, and gave up like 12 in another. You know what I mean? Like, let's just take wins, not really worry about how good of they are. Now, the fact that they weren't able to get like a real comfortable quality victory against this team in a 4-game set, I think does, in the same breath, speak some volumes to where this team is at currently. But that doesn't make me, I don't know. Like I said, like I'm not just going to be upset about it. I'm not trying to talk in circles, so we can move on. But I'll gladly take 3 of 4. Gladly. Okay. So, like I said, we're going to talk about kind of the trade deadline implications that this series had later in the show. But I do want to talk about Erod and Lorenzen as far as just like what they did on the field over the last 2 days. Goodness, both of them were fantastic in the last 2 games. On Wednesday, Erod goes 7 innings, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts. And then on Thursday, Michael Lorenzen goes 7 innings of shutout baseball. Michael Lorenzen now has a scoreless inning streak of, I believe, 21 innings, something like that. 21 2/3, maybe. The Tigers official account tweeted it out. But I tweeted this out yesterday as you're listening to this. Since Michael Lorenzen was announced as the Detroit Tigers starting pitcher, His stats are as follows: 3 games started, 18 and 2/3 innings pitched, 0 runs, 0, 14 strikeouts, and 6 walks. Okay, he has not allowed a run in the month of July. He only has 2 starts left in the month of July, right? So great stuff. His season ERA was about 4.3. It was like 4.28 when he was announced as the All-Star game representative for the Detroit Tigers on July 2nd, right? And now it is now sub 3.5. He took it from a 4.28 to a 3.49 in just 3 starts. He also, for whatever it's worth to you, was pitched shutout 2/3 of an inning in the All-Star game itself. So just want to truly give him a hats off. And I don't think that this is like his last start as a Tiger. I think they're going to take it to the deadline. But I mean, what a great success story for everybody involved, right? What a fantastic story it is for Michael Lorenzen. What is he, 9-10 years into his major league career? Hasn't really been trusted to be like an everyday starter really at any point in his career. I know the Angels did it, but he got hurt and whatnot. Like I mean, he was a reliever at one point. I mean, he was taking at bats. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just was never really viewed as like, oh yeah, like this is a solid middle rotation, like PO. And he has been brilliant. I mean, he had a great first 5 starts as a Tiger, dipped a little bit in June, and now his last 3 or 4, or I guess in his last 5, 4 of those last 5 is how I should put it. He's been great, and the only one was really against the Rockies in Coors. So, like, how much do you really take into that anyway? Like, he's been really, really good, and it's such a simple approach. He has 3 pitches, and he only uses 2 of them in an at bat. It just depends on if you're a righty or a lefty. We've talked about it a lot. We've done plenty of breakdowns on Michael Lorenzen, but like if you're a righty, you're going to get the fastball and the slider. If you're a lefty, you're going to get the fastball and a changeup. And I think the changeup has really been a big key for his success lately in the last month. If you look back at those starts earlier in the season, the changeup was working and he was getting a lot of swings and misses on it. He was able to place it pretty much wherever he wanted. It was perfect location, starting at the bottom of the zone, ending at the top of the kneecaps. And that kind of went away a little bit, like the effectiveness of it at least kind of went away a little bit in June. And then now it's back. And I thought that the changeup specifically in this outing was stellar, even if he didn't throw it as much as, a slider or his fastball. So great stuff from Michael Lorenzen. And the Tigers, I mean, from our perspective, I think we have a 1-year deal to this guy. I mean, I think when you're looking back at the small moves, we're not going to do like a full breakdown of all the every single move Harris has made. We'll save that for the end of the season. But I mean, Michael Lorenzen, if someone asks you in December, did we sign him in December? I think so. December, when we signed him, hey, Michael Lorenzen is even, he's going to be an all-star. You can even leave that out of it. If going into the trade deadline, you knew he was going to have a 3.5 ERA and you knew you were going to be able to get something for him at the deadline, would you take that? A 3.5 ERA, Gorosh on Twitter pointed it out to me, is a top 25 qualified starting pitcher ERA in the game of baseball right now. Now, top 25 isn't going to get you like Cy Young votes or anything, but there's only 30 teams. So top 25 is pretty darn good. And it's just if we had known that the result was going to be this, I think most people would have said this is best case scenario. Like genuinely. I think a lot of people would have labeled that as best case scenario, and that's what's happening. So shout out to Michael Lorenzen. Fantastic job. Erod, probably the biggest trade chip of the Detroit Tigers. Again, we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more at the end, but he had a great outing as well. 7 innings, 2 earned runs, 7 strikeouts. Let's keep the ball rolling. We're going to talk about his performance on the field, what made him so good, what has made him so good really throughout the season, and then we'll get into the offensive side of things. But first, I got to tell y'all about our friends Ober. How about Over at eBay Motors? For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. And it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits just right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know if a part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, Confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So get the right parts, the right fit, and the right price over at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all for tuning in, making us your first listen every day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We'll be back, not tomorrow. We'll be back on Monday, rather, recapping this 3-game set against the Padres. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. Yeah, I appreciate y'all. Sorry about yesterday again. Tried to get it out there. Not really sure what happened, but yeah, we're here. We're powering through. So, Erod, that's where we were. So Eduardo Rodriguez, consistently has been very, very solid for this team all year, and obviously had the one like 5 or 7, maybe even start stretch where he was like a Cy Young candidate. Where he stands right now, like he's so. It's tough because I think you have to trade him. I really do. He's your most valuable trade piece that you have, like unless you want to trade Riley Green, which you don't. He's your most valuable trade piece. He is the trade piece that you will get the most for, objectively. So it's difficult for me to say this because it's going to sound like a contradiction, and it's not. You have to trade him, but at the same breath, with his style that he pitches with, there is a spot in a rotation that I build, which I guess doesn't mean a whole lot to the Tigers, but like in a rotation that I build, there is always a spot for someone who pitches like Eduardo Rodriguez does. Since I took over as the host of this show, and that's why I freaked out so much and was so happy during a press conference when Scott Harris said it. We have been talking about how valuable walks are in the game of baseball, and I talk a lot about how valuable they are on the offensive side of the ball, but they're extremely valuable on the pitching side of things too, in the sense of not doing them right. Like Erod, he's not going to beat himself. And sometimes bad teams are going to hit him well because he just pounds the strike zone. And obviously sometimes good teams are going to hit him well, right? But the way he pitches when his command is on, everything is on a corner. It's on the black. Everything moves just enough to miss a barrel. He doesn't have bat missing stuff, really. You're not going to get a 20 whiff performance from Eduardo Rodriguez, but you're going to get 10 to 12. And mostly you're just going to have everybody with their timing just off enough to never square up a baseball. And he's going to get a lot of called strikes because he's always going to be around the black. Like I said, it's just, there is always, always, always a spot in, never an ace, like a bona fide ace on a playoff team or anything like that. But there is always a spot in my rotation for somebody who's just going to pound the strike zone, make the hitter prove that they are going to be able to beat you that day. Pitcher's never going to beat himself, and consistently find corners night in and night out. I really do. I know it's been a roller coaster of a journey, and we still have a couple of starts left. I don't think he's going anywhere in the next 5 games. But hats off to Erod too, man, because that dude is so fun to watch on the mound when he is on. It is truly a sight to behold, and I just love the style he pitches with. And yeah, this game was no different. Everything is a barrel missing pitch, man. Everything's tunneled so well. It really is. He's a pro. He's a pro's pro. Okay, let's get to the offense. So I want to talk about the lineups. It feels like every single time we bring up, really every day at this point, like there's a change in the lineup. And there's something that you're like, oh, I didn't really expect that to happen or whatnot. And for this round, it was Jake Rogers in the 5-hole 2 games ago, right? The episode that didn't happen. So with that, it got me thinking about, did I like that or not? Right? Like I was like, oh, that's new. Is that a new that I enjoy, or is that a bad new? Right? Is that something that I'm not too fond of? And at first, I found myself not super pleased about it. Just because my initial reaction was like, yeah, like he walks a ton. Everybody knows I love that. He hits extra bases. His OPS, I think, is above league average still. Right now, it's around league average, at least his OPS is. But the average is obviously low, and I'm not a huge batting average guy, but it's undeniable that in the 5 spot in your lineup, you'd like someone that's going to at least give you a little bit of a chance to put the ball in play. So I was like, yeah, I kind of liked him in the bottom part of the lineup. A league average hitter when it's all averaged out, right? Gives you extra base potential, can still get on base even if he doesn't have an extra base hit with walks. I don't need my 8 or 9 hitter to be hitting a ton of singles for me to be pleased with their production. And most of Jake Rogers' value is behind the plate. That doesn't change. But when looking and constructing the lineup, at first I was like, I don't know. Then I looked behind him in the lineup. And this bottom of the lineup is just so barren still that, like, I mean, he's up to a 207 average now, too. It's not like he's still batting 170 or whatever that he was for the first couple of months of the season. But, like, looking behind him, dog, what, you're going to advocate for I don't know, Zach Short's OPS is under 600 now. He was the 9 hitter in one of the games. Andy Ibanez has got a 670 OPS. Miguel Cabrera's like 650, 660 OPS. Like, you're going to advocate for one of those guys to be Nick Maton? Like, you're going to advertise for one of those guys to be like the 5 hitter over a guy who at least he's going to strike out a boatload, no denying that, but at least he gives you somewhat of a threat and can get on base on a walk. And again, OPS league average. I don't know. So, like, at first I was like, like, I think in a perfect world, obviously Jake Rogers is not in your 5 hole. If you're a good baseball team, he's not. So as this team continues to grow and progress, he should get moved down in the lineup. But on July 21st, you don't have a ton of better options to be your 5 hitter. So, like, it kind of just is what it is. This is very clearly a bona fide top 4 that on a night-to-night basis, while not perfect, very far from, this is still a sub-500 team and a very, very lowly rated offense. You can at least somewhat rely on, like, Green, Torkelson, Carpenter to produce some runs, right? At least get on base and give yourself a chance to score runs. But, man, that 5 through 9 still has a lot of heavy lifting to do. A lot. Before this lineup, you can look at it and be like, oh, this is pretty good. Fair enough. Fair enough. So I just want to point that out. As far as performances offensively go, I mean, like, Riley Green's amazing. 4 hits. Yeah. 4 hits in the last 2 games. 3-hit performance and a 1-hit performance. Pulled the ball in the air a couple of times. Great to see. 300 average now on the season. 300 average, 817 OPS. Riley Green I'm so happy he is on my baseball team. He's going to be so, so good. Already is. Spencer Torkelson, you know, it's just, I've said this a lot before, so I guess it's not really new info, but, like, it's so game to game. Like, his numbers at this point over the last month are, like, pretty respectable. Like, they're actually pretty solid over the last, like, 4 weeks. But that being said, like, his at-bats on Wednesday, I didn't think were that bad. I thought they were pretty respectable. He put the bat on the ball a couple of times, got a hit. Had a strikeout too, but I wasn't really, like, super unimpressed with the strikeout. On Thursday's game, he didn't have a strikeout, but every at bat, I was like, that I'm not happy with what you just did. He had the sac fly. I guess that's nice. Clutch hitting. We'll take that. You know what? Honestly, I'm happy with that one because, like, this team is allergic to productive outs. It's unbelievable. People talk all the time. This is a quick side tangent. People talk all the time about this team's average runners in scoring position. What are their stats with RISP? And we talk about it all the time. I had a whole show named RISP, like, a month and a half ago. But this team, the thing that bothers me maybe even more is that none of their outs are productive. Man on second, nobody out. That dude's not even getting stranded on third. He's staying there. Right? There's no sac flies. There's no sac hits. It's a ground ball out, but it's to the right side, and there's a man on second, so he advances to third. There's no sac flies that aren't necessarily RBIs, but that can at least have the runner tag up and advance from second to third. No productive outs ever. And so I at least give him a nod for that. I applause. But, like, I didn't think they were very good at bats. So it really is like a day-to-day thing at this point. Javi, we said it on here after the 3-hit. What do you have? A 3-hit game. He got on base 4 times. And I was like, yeah, but none of them were proving us wrong. Like, he did pull 1 fastball in that game. He hasn't pulled a fastball for a hit since. And like even his home run 2 games ago was on a hanging curveball that was like 79 miles an hour. Like it's just until he consistently, again, like everybody's caught up on the approach. The approach doesn't matter. Like I know it's ridiculous to say because of how ridiculous he looks in the batter's box sometimes. He has always looked like that. I don't want to say the same thing every day. That has always been a thing. He has still been able to be like a 6.5 WAR player with the same approach. If he was crushing fastballs still, like he always has, he would have the same underlying numbers, but with obviously higher exit velocities and stuff. So until he consistently starts hitting fastballs hard to the pull side, because that implies that he's actually on it, he's been late on every fastball he's seen this year. Until he starts doing that again, I don't care. Like it is what it is at this point. That's the turning point for me. Everybody's hung up on the approach. I don't care about the approach. That's been his approach for a decade. Hit fastballs that are strikes. Okay, cool. I know we've had that conversation like 3 times this week, and I explicitly said on Monday's show I didn't want to have the same hobby conversation every day. But like it's so prevalent in the community right now. I just feel the need to address it as very often. Okay, let's keep the ball rolling. A little bit more offense, then we'll get into the bullpen and obviously the trade deadline stuff. We'll do that right after I tell you all about our friends over at Margs. This episode is brought to you by Margs Sparkling Margaritas. You all know that I love a good drink, and I've been trying to find the replacement for the typical like White Claws and High Noons of the world. Thank goodness I stumbled upon Margs. They are refreshing, they're ready to drink, and they are sparkling margaritas that have officially become my go-to cocktail. They're crafted with real Blanco tequila. They're clean, crisp, and they genuinely taste so good. 5 unique flavors, so there's something for everyone to enjoy. Kicking back after work, hanging out with friends, watching a game on a weekend, you name it. It's the drink of the summer for me. I've been packing my coolers with it all summer, and I will continue to do so for the rest of the summer because it's not even close to over yet. Okay, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And then this fall, when summer is over, sadly, it'll be the perfect tailgate drink as well. So visit sipmargs.com now to find a retailer near you. That's SIPMARGS.com to find a retailer near you. Must be 21 and over to enjoy. Cheers, and please drink responsibly. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. So some other quick names. Kerry Carpenter getting more opportunities against lefties. I think everyone's pretty happy about that. Nick Maton got a hit. That's like big news pretty much whenever it happens. I think that's his first hit since the home run in the first game back. So, like, again, like I know I got clowned on it when it happened because I said he didn't look that much different to me in AAA, and then he immediately hit a homer. And, like, that's objectively funny. Whatever, I don't care. But since then, we're kind of back to the same old, same old. He's not striking out as much, but a lot of just like lazy fly balls, kind of. I hope I'm wrong, but I have a really hard time believing that he like just is now able to consistently hit big league off speed stuff after like 11 games in AAA. That just seems very far fetched to me, but we'll see. Again, hope I'm wrong more than anything. Love Nick Maton. That's pretty much it. Akil Baddoo drawing walks like Akil Baddoo does. That's, 670 OPS, and the walks are doing a lot of heavy lifting in that. Not a lot of like batted ball success this year. Just hasn't really been able to barrel the baseball up consistently throughout the entire year. So that'll be something to watch as the season goes along too. Eric Haas with a hit. I know everybody's on Haas's case right now, and performance aside, like great dude, and just hope that maybe that takes a little bit of the weight off his shoulders. So yeah, it's pretty much it. Zach McKinstry, I'm not going to repeat the same spiel I repeat every single time. Just watch his at-bats. I'm never wrong. It's literally every time he strikes out, it's either a high fastball or a curveball on his shoelaces. Like the scouting report's out. Okay, let's talk about where this team stands as far as the trade deadline goes. So to me, this series changed very little. And part of that is due to the fact that, because I know I said, like, if you really want to get me and other people on board, you need to go and really just like beat the Twins. And the Royals. And I don't expect them to sweep anybody. I said that earlier, but 3 or 4 is respectable. That's good. That was best case scenario pretty much for me. So that's great. they were what 5.5 back at the deadline. Jeez, I keep getting words mixed up. Deadline and All-Star break. They were 5.5 back at the break. I want to say, was it 5.5? They're 5 games back right now. Yes, they're 5-2 since the break, but they haven't like gained a boatload of ground. The Twins, I believe, have only lost 1 game since the break. I want to say that's true, maybe 2, but like we haven't done, we've been winning, but we haven't gained a boatload of ground. And there's still whatever, a week and a half, 10 days left until the deadline as well. So I think a lot's going to be determined over the next week or so. And when talking about Erod and Lorenzen specifically, I don't really care what this team does. I don't see when you're weighing the pros and cons of moving them and holding on to them. I have a really hard time believing there's any amount of pros of holding on to them that outweighs trading them. And I know that's like some people really disagree with that, and that's hard to hear as well. Like, I want this team to win every game, but like when it comes down to it, like those are your 2 most valuable trade pieces, and your system is still very thin. And Erod is opting out, and Michael Lorenzen is on a 1-year deal. And Michael Lorenzen's not going to sign an extension in July because he's having a career year. Why on earth would he do that? He's going to test the open market. So like, and Erod, if it's opt in and get underpaid objectively or opt out and become a free agent, he's also going to want to test the open market. You feel me? So like, there's just, for guys that are, for my money, like pretty much guaranteed not going to be here next year. It's really tough for me to, or at least guaranteed going to test the open market. I guess I'll put it that way. Guaranteed going to be free agents in December. It's really tough for me to look and be like, oh, a team that's 8 games under 500 and 5 games out of first. Because like 5 games out of first is nice to look at optically, but like the Twins haven't gone well below 500 all season. So like you're going to have to make up those 8 games. That's more or less like what your games back is by the end of the season. It's not really 5 because the Twins aren't going to, I don't think, are going to go like well under and be like this 4 game under 500 team unless they like sell or whatever. They've been pretty consistently within a game or 2 of 500 this entire last 2 months. So that's what you're chasing. And it's just, it's really difficult for me to justify not moving on from that when you're 8 games under 500. Now, there's still time. There's still 10 games left. They play some, I'm not going to say the W word, but like they play some teams that have been struggling. The Padres are 5-6 games under 500. They have been really struggling to get the ball rolling. They have all the talent in the world and just none of the results. They've been really laboring out there. I think, for my money, maybe the most interesting series of the entire like season so far, maybe for any team, even if I'm not going to, that's like super dramatic, but Tigers Angels is going to be a movie. These are 2 teams that have legitimate trade pieces to sell. I'm not comparing Erod to Ohtani. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani is like, if he gets moved to the deadline, I think, let me know if there's someone else that pops out at you, to the sports fans listening to this. But like in any sport, has there been a better player traded at the deadline ever? At the deadline, Gretzky was traded in an offseason, right? Like he certainly is probably the greatest player ever traded. I mean, like Babe Ruth, I guess, but that was also the offseason, right? Like I think there's a legitimate argument the Angels, if they were to trade him, that would be trading the best player to ever get traded at the deadline in any sport ever. So, like, I'm not comparing our situation to the Angels, but, like, they're 2 teams that if they go on heaters from now until the deadline are going to play themselves into contention. And if they lose games and play themselves out of contention, have a lot of implications on their roster of who to trade. Like, a lot of discussions, rather, on their roster about players to trade. So I think that's going to be a very, even from just like a third-party perspective, a fascinating series after the Padres series is over next week. And that's like the second to last series before the deadline for both teams, too. That's like 25th through 27th, I want to say, or 24th through 26th. So that's going to be really fascinating. There's some people out there, that have asked me some questions, like Chris Castellani, for instance, former host of Locked On Tigers. That's the dog. He made a comment where, he gets asked all the time the same thing, who's going to get traded at the deadline. And his opinion was Erod has to get traded just because of the situation. And Lorenzen kind of does too because of his situation. And he said that that's it. And I had some people ask me about my opinion of another man's opinion, which is like always funny, but I love the discussion truly. And so I don't think that that's like super far off from what I said. I think that, I mean, I had Cisnero in there as well, like Chase and Shreve. I think if you can get anything for him, they will. If not, then they'll just keep him, obviously. But the biggest thing for me is like they don't have very many other players to trade. Like there's no bats. The only one I was talking to had a thread with Jed as well on Twitter about like Badu maybe. Besides that, there's no other bats that are like getting traded. There's none. Nobody wants any of our bats. And the players that they do want are like top prospects with 5 years of control, right? Like Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson aren't going anywhere. So like, I mean, genuinely, like Badu's the only one I could think of as like maybe you have a crowded outfield. They're all left-handers. Maybe they're, and we talked about this, over the All-Star break as well. Like this isn't the first time we've talked about this on this show, but like maybe him. But even then, like he walks a lot. Maybe that's a Scott Harris guy. I don't know. The only two outside, like starting pitchers, it's just those two. The only two players on the team outside of Lorenzen and Erod that have like a legitimate market would be Foley and Lang. And like we talked about that way more in depth, in that episode when we talked about the Tigers trade pieces. But like that's like it. Like again, like Cisnero, I think is going to get traded, but that's like a rental 6th inning reliever. Like that's not like you're not going to get a ton for him, and he's not going to change the direction of the Tigers season if we don't have Jose Cisnero. With all due respect, like that's not going to change the trajectory of what the Tigers are going to accomplish in August and September if they trade him, right? So like, yeah, like they might just trade those two, I guess 3 guys if you include Cisnero. Because that's like the only people they really have. The only other thing would, again, besides Badu, would be getting creative and trading one of the relievers with a lot of years of control left. So we'll see. We'll see. But I still, I guess my overlying point is just like, I find it very hard to believe that this front office weighs making a division run in an awful division this year heavier than the return that we will end up getting for Lorenzen and Erod. Not that it's going to be a ton. I don't want people to go, oh my goodness, we didn't get 3 top prospects for these guys. This is a horrible deal. And we'll certainly break down the trade when it happens on this show. But I think that's, if you're taking calculated risks, I still feel like you have to move them. Those 3 guys, I guess. We'll see, though. A lot of balls still to be played. And that starts with I don't know why we want to say Pirates. Starts with the Padres series, rather, at home. The pitching matchups for this weekend, 6:40, 6:10, and 12:05 are the start times, by the way. 12:05 at home. We're the Peacock game. Oh, my gosh. Okay, anyway. Reese Olson against Seth Lugo on Friday, I believe, is the pitching matchup. Yep. Then Saturday is TBD for the Padres and Matt Manning for the Tigers. And then Joe Musgrove Sunday for the Padres and TBD Sunday for the Tigers. So TBD is getting a lot of work this weekend. Yeah, I mean, they're 5 games under 500. Like, this is not like the big, bad, scary Padres that everyone thought they were going to be this year. They have really, really struggled to like get the ball rolling. And Musgrove's been great, and Seth Lugo's been really solid as well, both with sub-4 ERAs. Musgrove, was a couple of good starts away from a sub-3 ERA. Like these are solid guys, but a little bit of shaky bullpen. And the biggest thing is their offense has just really, really struggled. So I don't know, maybe go to FanDuel and bet the under. Not betting advice. I don't know, but like, I don't know, like the Pirates and Tigers offense. I don't know. Pirates again, Padres and Tigers offense. We'll see what happens. But again, if you want people to really kind of light the fire and start the conversation about like, what are we doing at the deadline? Who do we want? What's the correct move? If you want to make the conversation harder, take 2 of 3 this weekend. Keep kicking, people like me in the gut. Being like, we're just going to keep winning ball games no matter what you say. Keep doing it, please. I would love to root for a winning baseball team for the love of everything. That's where I stand. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We'll be back on Monday, recapping this series against the Padres. Quick rumor mill stuff as well. Early indications are that the Astros and the Rays are interested in Michael Lorenzen. It's a little rumor mill action for the people that really stick around to the very end of these shows. How about that? But yeah, it's believed that the Astros and the Rays are already like showing some pretty serious interest in Lorenzen. So, I mean, if you're just looking at farm systems, I'd much rather work with the Rays. But if you also just look at the history of trading with the Rays, that's obviously a little scary. I don't think you can work like that. I don't think as a GM you can like be timid when just like, oh, we're just never going to trade with the Rays because everybody loses those trades. Like, I don't think you can work that way. So like, if that's the best offer to you, that's the best offer to you. But very interesting prospects there. Two teams that are really, really needing of starting pitching help because of injuries. The Rays especially just decimated with starting pitching injuries. So makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. We'll be back on Monday. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.